Speak on this show. The year is 2022, episode 4. It's a Help Me Understand Saturday. We got some topics we're going to talk about. So without further ado, the clock on the wall says it's time to get into this. Y'all ready? Let's go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. First and foremost, giving honor to the God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. How's everybody doing this morning? 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. Saturday mornings, speak on this show. I'm your boy, R.W. Coolins. Let's go and get these formalities out of the way. R.W. Coolins on all social media platforms. Follow, subscribe, share, do what you do. That's what we do here on the show. Make it happen. Today, we're going to get into that in a minute. Let's just go continue. R.W. Coolins. Also, we're broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube this morning. If you want to, go back and listen to the show audio after the fact, Spreaker.com, and you can download on Apple iTunes. I'm a little disheveled this morning, y'all. I got some things that I really need to concentrate on, and we gonna get in this. OT, good morning, my brother. Good morning. Hey, everybody. If you don't know, OT show live. You need to go subscribe on YouTube, follow on Facebook. I shared yesterday, so if you need to go to my page, the Rodney W. Collins page. I shared his show yesterday, interview. You can go there, subscribe to his channel, watch his shows, his interviews. He's doing big things over there. So OT, drop that your website and everything for me, bro. I can't remember right now. I'm a little disheveled. I don't know what's going on this morning. Brian Hoodie, good morning, sir. Good morning. Appreciate the support. Thank you for tuning in this morning. Calling lines, still having problems with the calling lines, but we'll have that fixed by next week. I have some calls and technical difficulties, so they're working on that from my end. So we'll have that back open. Anyone want to make a comment, as we always do. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. Say what you mean what you say. That's all we ask. If we come in as friends, we leave as friends. We have open and honest discussions. That's what we do here on the Speak on This show. Yeah, that's what we do here. That's what we do here. It's January's gone, y'all. January is gone. We are already 1 month into 2022. Black History Month, February, coming up. It's about that time of year, where we get to reflect, learn, read, get to know our history, African American history, Black American History Month. So I would indulge each of you to take the opportunity to learn some things during Black History Month, things that you may not know. OT, yeah, follow OT, otradioshow.com. I'll remember that next time, bro. That's my bad. otradioshow.com. You can go there and follow. Also, YouTube, OT Radio Show. Go there, download all his shows, listen to his shows, listen to his interviews, and different things like that. So appreciate it, bro. Appreciate it. But yeah, we're at the end of January, man. A lot of snow been going down and dropping over on the East Coast and everything. We got cold all over the United States of America in certain pockets. It's still cold out here in Las Vegas. I mean, it's hit and miss. But we're at the end of the month of January already, going into February. And the reason I bring that up is because time doesn't slow down. Time continues to roll. No matter what you're going through, no matter what you got going on in life, time continues to roll on. And you got one or two choices. You can keep up or you can get on the sideline. Either you can keep up or you can get on the sideline. I'm just saying it that way. You can keep up or you can stay on the sideline. It's up to you. It's up to you how you do it. It's up to you if you do it. All I'm saying is 1,440. 1,440 moments per day. enjoy each one for what it brings. Because these days, these minutes, these hours are going by fast. They're going by fast. Let's go on and get into this conversation here. No vaccine, no transplant. No vaccine, no transplant. Now, when I seen this, I had to be honest with y'all. I'm a little torn. I'm a little torn as far as how we're going about taking care of people that are sick during this pandemic. A lot of it is the decision of the people who choose not to get the vaccine. And it's hard decisions need to be made in the medical community. Let's just be honest about it. Should you get care if you have not taken care of yourself as far as getting the vaccine? It's a toss-up. Because some people are going by the religious preferences or the religious beliefs as far as the vaccine. Some are going by what they read, and some people are just going by the propaganda that they hear. But this individual, a Boston hospital, says it won't consider performing a heart transplant on a patient who refuses to get vaccinated against COVID-19. The patient will not get vaccinated, and he's due a heart transplant. DJ Ferguson, 31, is fighting for his life at Brigham and Women's Hospital and in desperate need of a heart transplant. His father, David Ferguson, is speaking out passionately on behalf of his son, who he told CBS Boston has gone to the edge of death to stick to his gun, and he's been pushed to the limit. DJ's family says he was at the front of the line. He was at the front of the line to receive a transplant, but hospital policy stipulates that he's no longer eligible because he hasn't received the vaccination. And David Ferguson says his son simply won't, is what his father said. It's kind of against his basic principles. He doesn't believe in it. It's a policy they are enforcing, and so, because he won't get the shot, they took him off the list for a heart transplant. Brigham and Women's Hospital released a statement saying, like many other transplant programs in the United States, the COVID-19 vaccine is one of several vaccines and lifestyle behaviors required for transplant candidates in the Mass General Brigham system in order to create both the best chance for a successful operation and also the patient's survival after transplantation. This is where I'm torn. Because, I understand the policies, I understand what's going on with the hospital and everything. And they got, and let me just put it this way. I don't know anyone has had surgery before, but what I understand about surgery, you have to prepare and you have to have certain things done before they would do your surgery. They have a pre-op appointment for you to tell you everything you need to do pre-operation. And in those operation meetings, they tell you got to have this, you got to do this, you can't be sick, you can't have a cold, you can't do it all. Otherwise, they'll cancel the surgery. So now with this, being the vaccine, being we're in a pandemic, I get the fact that they expect this person to be vaccinated because it's one of their policies for the hospital. This individual chooses not to get the vaccine, and he's standing by his guns that he's not going to get the vaccine. So now he's not going to get a heart transplant, and he could die. He's a father of two with a third child on the way. Family says they're not sure what they plan to do. They're thinking about transferring him, but he may be too weak to be moved. John Chaney, I wonder if he's a true anti-vaxxer, or has he just chosen that this one is evil? Well, I tried to find that out, John Chaney, and in here it just says that while the family says DJ has received great care from doctors and nurses at Brigham and Women's, they just don't agree with the heart transplant COVID vaccination policy. This is what the family says. I think my boy, this is his father, I think my boy is fighting pretty damn courageously, and he has integrity and principles he really believes in, and that makes me respect him all the more. Which is why the family is sticking by his side and hoping for the best. It's his body, it's his choice. Listen to what he said. It's his body, it's his choice. I'm cool with that. If you choose not to get a vaccine, knowing that you won't be able to get a heart transplant, kidney transplant, any of the transplants they had to do, or they had to do surgery on you, or life-saving surgery on you and everything, and you had to get vaccinated first before they'll do the surgery. You choose not to. You and your family have to be able to live with that. That's just like if you're going in for surgery, they tell you got to lose 20 pounds or they will not do the surgery. And you make no effort to lose the 20 pounds, and you can't have that life-changing surgery or life-saving surgery. Whose decision is that? Thank you, John Chaney. His decision is made. But what gets me is that we're out here, I'm going to say we, they're out here advertising this about he can't get his heart transplant because he won't get the vaccination. And they're trying to hold the hospital accountable. But if the policies are set that you have to have these certain things done in order to get this transplant, the onus falls on you, not the hospital. Case in point, the doctor says, post any transplant, kidney, heart, whatever your immune system is shut off. The flu could kill you, a cold could kill you, COVID could kill you. The organs are scarce. We are not, watch this now, we are not going to distribute them to someone who has a poor chance of living when others who are vaccinated have a better chance post-surgery of surviving. And see, I say I'm torn because I understand that it's a choice on whether you get the vaccine or not. I'm already past that. I ain't arguing with nobody no more. I ain't going back and forth with you. If you choose to get the vaccine, you choose to get the vaccine. You don't get the vaccine, you don't get the vaccine. However, always got to have it. However, when you go to that hospital and they choose not to treat you because you have to have these vaccines or you have to have these things in place for them to feel safe about what they're doing or your survival rate after what they have to do and everything, and you still choose not to do it, why should we, as a community and as the United States of America, have any remorse, feelings, any of the above that you can think about for you if you choose not what's in the best interest of survival to do? Now, as I mentioned, this one line, the family is sticking by his side and hoping for the best. It's his body. It's his choice. Every time I hear that comment, every time I hear that phrase come from people, I often ask myself, I would like to talk to those people who throw that out there about his body, his choice, and see how they feel about the abortion bans that are going on around the United States of America. How they're trying to dictate how women should control their bodies in situations that may have been from rape, incest, so on and so forth, any situation. See, this is where some people choose to throw these things up when it's convenient for them to say my body, my choice, like the vaccine, like he don't want to get the vaccine because, now he can't get a heart transplant, his body, his choice. But when you talk about women's bodies and women's choices, it's a different conversation. It's a different narrative. If we're going to talk about his body, his choice, when we put people on death row, in spite of the fact that they may have committed a crime that has sentenced them to that, who are we to make the decision on whether a person lives or dies? Just me. It's just me. Terrence Collins, appreciate the support, bro. Appreciate the support. John Chaney, great point. These are things that people don't think about. They are, my choice. It's my choice. My body, my choice. You know what? Most of the people yelling out there, my body, my choice, are quiet and silent when it comes to the abortion issue. Because they've never seen themselves in a situation where they had to make that choice. Something like, if you have this baby, if you carry it full term, there's a chance that the mother and the child may not survive. What do you do? Now I don't want to go down that road because that's one of them tunnels I don't like to get into too deep, because I have my own convictions about how I feel about it. But all I'm saying is, when these people throw these things out about my body, my choice, let's weigh these things. Let's look at it from the big perspective of How do you feel when it's something that you got to make a decision about? Case in point, I need a heart, but I ain't getting that vaccine. I need a kidney, but I'm not getting that vaccine. Well, if you really think about it, not getting the vaccine could be a death sentence. And not having that heart or kidney transplant that you need could be a death sentence. Choose wisely. And if you've been on the list that long, as this family said, if you've been on the list that long and now you're at the top of the list, and they're telling you all you got to do is get this vaccine so you can see many more years with your 2 kids and the one on the way. As John Chaney said, I wonder if he's an anti-vaxxer, because his family is saying he's standing by his laurels. He loves his integrity and standing on his laurels of what he believes. Let's see how much you mourn him if he doesn't go about to get the vaccine and he can't get that heart transplant, then you have to plan funeral arrangements. Because I'm pretty sure when you found out he was on the list and he was at the top of the list, you celebrated that you were going to have your son around, that the kids were going to have their father around, that the woman was going to have her husband around. Are you celebrating now? Choose wisely. That's all I'm saying. Choose wisely. Supreme Court. Oh, I know all y'all seen this in the news this week. But before I get into what's being said about the Supreme Court, let me give you a little history of the Supreme Court, and then we'll get into why this is such an uproar about what's going on. Because I had to look at some things because I want to make sure we fill in the blanks. I don't want to be like they do with history and don't want to fill in the blanks with the 1619 Project or the critical race theories. I want to fill in the blanks about what's going on with the Supreme Court. John Chaney, the sad thing is they have politicized this issue. The information is out and vaccines are effective. But have you ever heard these conversations where they try to go back to, and I was guilty of it in the beginning. I'm not going to lie. When we started going back to what happened with the Tuskegee experiment, and they always try to harp on that African Americans would not get the vaccine because of how they did those African Americans back in the day with the Tuskegee experiment. But what you find out is if you did a population check by demographics, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say about 80% of African Americans are vaccinated. I haven't seen the numbers and then pull the numbers up. To me, but that was the narrative in the beginning, that we weren't going to get the vaccine because of the Tuskegee experiment and everything. But if you read about the Tuskegee experiment, they weren't injecting it with anything. They just weren't treating them with what they had. They had syphilis, but they said they were treating, but they were never treating. There's a difference between that and a vaccine. Read, people. Read. That's all I'm saying. Supreme Court. So there's an uproar this week. Let's just start here. During the run up to the election, when President Joe Biden was looking to get the nomination, in one of the debates with the Democrat to get the Democratic nomination, he said that if he's elected, he would nominate an African-American woman to the Supreme Court, the first ever to the Supreme Court. Now, what people don't want to talk about, and they try to lead this out, but Ronald Reagan did the same thing back in 1981. He just didn't say African-American woman. He said a woman. That woman he nominated was Sandra Day O'Connor. When Ronald Reagan was governor running for president, he said that if he's elected, he would nominate the first woman to the Supreme Court. There was a little backlash, but not like it is now when you say you're going to nominate the first African-American woman to the Supreme Court. Now, I'll put this precursor out there. There's nothing saying that just because he said he's going to nominate the first African-American woman to the Supreme Court, that she's not qualified. And we're going to get into this qualification things here pretty soon. But what I'm saying is, just because he says that does not mean that this is some type of affirmative action thing. It's not a discrimination thing against anybody else. You've never had an African-American woman sit on the Supreme Court. So for him to say that's what he's going to do, what is the uproar about? I'm just asking. Is it because you don't want to see it? Is it because she's unworthy? Is it because it's a lifetime appointment? at the highest court in the land? What is it? Or is it the melanin content on the Supreme Court? Because normally, well, let me get into this. Since 1789, the Supreme Court has had a total of 115 Supreme Court justices. Only 2 have been of African American descent. 2. Thurgood Marshall, Clarence Thomas. Of those 115, 5 have been women. 4 white women, 1 Hispanic Latino woman of color. That's how they identified it. So you've had 110 white men. Let's just break it down now. You have 110 white men. Oh, wait a minute. I wrote that down wrong. Hold on. 708. Excuse me. 108 white men have sat on the Supreme Court. You only had 7 people total that weren't white men. 2 were black men, 5 were women, 1 was Latina, who still sits there, Sonia Sotomayor. But there's this big uproar about a black woman being on the Supreme Court. Here's how it runs. Back in 1996, Thurgood Marshall was the first African-American male to ever be on the Supreme Court. He served from 1967 to 1991, 23 years. He was voted in a vote of 69 to 11. He was passed to be on the Supreme Court when his nomination came. James Battle, good morning, bro. Good morning. Appreciate your support. Number 102, he was number 96. Number 102 was Sandra Day O'Connor. She was voted on as the first woman in a vote of 99 to 0. 99 to 0, she was voted on to be the first woman on the Supreme Court. She served from 1981 to 2006. Clarence Thomas was number 106. He was voted on with a vote of 52 to 48 because you remember the Anita Hill thing that went on and everything like that. So it was a close margin, 52 to 48. He was the second African-American male to be voted on, and he went on after Thurgood Marshall left. Clarence Thomas has been on the Supreme Court for 30 years as of right now. 30 years he has been serving on the Supreme Court. Number 107 on that list is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the second woman ever elected to the Supreme Court. She was voted with a vote of 96 to 3. She served from 1993 till she passed away in 2020. Number 111, Sonia Sotomayor. She was voted on the court as a vote of 68 to 31. She was the third woman, first woman of color, first Hispanic, first Latina. 2009 to present. Fourth woman ever voted, Elena Kagan. 65 to 37 was the vote. She's the fourth woman ever put on the court, 2010 to present. Number 115, Amy Coney Barrett. Fifth woman ever elected to the Supreme Court by a vote of 52 to 48. You remember her thing was about the religion and abortion and Roe versus Wade and overturning and everything. So there's some controversy about her election, her being nominated and being passed in 2020 to present. Now that's the history of the Supreme Court as far as there's only been 115 total. 2 African-American men, 5 women. 4 white women, 1 Latina. Woman of color, as they say. But now there's certain people in uproar because President Joe Biden decided that when he was running that he was going to say in concert with something that James Clyburn, who put the fire on him to get him elected and everything, said that you need to promise the people that you will put an African-American female on the Supreme Court. And now he's following through with that promise. Republicans, Fox News, the pundits, all these people in uproar. And what they don't remember is there's a woman named Amelia L. Kearse. She was a U.S. Circuit Court judge. And she was on this short list, African-American woman now. She was on the short list of becoming a Supreme Court justice when Anthony Scalia was voted in, when Clarence Thomas was voted in, and when the person is retiring now that the opening is Justice Breyer. She was on the short list for all three of these openings at the time, but no one talks about her. Amelia L. Kearse, look her up. But because she never got that close, she was on the short list, but she was never got the nomination, nobody cared. But now that they know that this is a no-brainer, that it's going to happen, that the short list is so short that it's only black women that's going to be even looked at, oh, there's a problem. There's a problem. John Chaney, we don't even have to guess why the uproar. I'm glad you mentioned it. You're right. Because there's a whole lot of going back and forth of people saying this is affirmative action to the 10th power. This is discrimination, that you're not going to interview anyone but African-American women, and so on. You know, the narrative that goes into play when it comes to this. Are they qualified? You can't just throw somebody on there that's not qualified and all this kind of stuff. But I'm going to go back for a minute, and I'm going to ask this question. Of those 108 white men that have been voted to the Supreme Court up to this date, has anyone ever questioned their qualifications? Has anybody ever been in an uproar about how they look, how the process works? You can't just select someone or say you're going to go with this demographic because it's been done. It's just never been said. Let me say it again. It's been done. Reagan, I'm going to elect the first woman. But see, Joe Biden went a step further and said, I'm going to elect the first African-American woman. What is the fear of having an African-American woman sit on the Supreme Court? I asked that rhetorically, because I know deep down there's some people who have a fear of African-American women, African-American men, people of color as a whole, sitting on any type of board in this United States of America. There are always going to be those pockets of people who don't feel that you are worthy of being in the position that you're in. I read some of the people, some of the women who are going to be, who they're looking at on the short list of being nominated. Their qualifications are stellar. Some of their qualifications, let's just go here. Some of the qualifications are better than some of the ones who have recently been appointed. But we don't want to talk about that, because some of the ones that were recently appointed weren't appointed because of their qualifications. They were appointed because of where they sit. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that they're not fully qualified. But when you put their qualifications up against these black women, African-American women who are being nominated now, they can't even hold a candle to what their accomplishments are. The seats they have held, the cases they have tried. None of them. But rather than look at their qualifications and let's go from that, they want to go by the fact of he can't just appoint an African-American woman. That's discrimination. Trump announced he was nominating a woman. No uproar. See, these are the things that when we, as an African-American community, as a black community, as people of color as a whole, when we see these type things and the uproar that goes along with the fact that we're advancing to the potential of what we've studied, what we've learned, what our worth is, and someone recognizes and decides they're going to nominate us for a position that we're worthy of and that we should be qualified for and that we are qualified for. You have those that feel because of how you look and your skin tone, your melanin content, that that's not a good look. Not a good look. This doesn't just happen on the Supreme Court. We see it all over the place. I've seen it in the military. Those who have served with me in the military have seen it in the military how well you can be the sharpest tool in the drawer. Come to work every day and do everything you're supposed to do. Wear your uniform within the regulations of 3510 back in the day, 24301, I think it was, but I retired. Don't call me out on that, but I don't know. Shine your boots, do everything you're supposed to do the right way. And when it's time for the recognition, they look past you and give the recognition to the mediocre white guy because of where he sits and how he looks. But hey, critical race theory is, fiction. Shouldn't be talked about. Shouldn't be talked about at all. 1619 Project, nah. George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, those were just instances. Those weren't systemic things that go on. Zeke, what's going on, my brother? Appreciate the support. Yes, still happening, my brother. Yes, it is. In everyday life. You're good enough to do the job, but you're not good enough for the recognition. You don't fit the profile of what we want to portray. Nah. And the sad thing about that is that I won't say we on this one, but the sad thing is that there comes a point where, Morning Zupans, appreciate support, where we get comfortable with these things that are going on around us, and we'll yell from the rooftops a couple times in the beginning because we're pissed off about it and everything, and then after a while, we just take it as it's status quo. Why even argue about it? And that's at our levels down here. But when you're talking about the levels of Congress, Supreme Courts, President of the United States, Vice President of the United States, you've only had two people in the history of this country that weren't white men in the position of president and vice president. Two. President Barack Obama, who some folks say wasn't black enough to be considered a black president because he was of mixed culture. Half black, half white. Y'all know the story. And Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, who they said, is she really black because she's, she claims West Indian and it. See, this is where sometimes we got to step back and think about the things that we say out of our mouths. When we start talking about, they ain't black enough, or they're not this, or they're not that. We have to accept progress for what it is and call it out for what it's not. There's also this case in front of the Supreme Court right now. They got two cases on the use of race preferences in college admissions. I don't know if any of y'all heard about this, but in college, they're coming up on race, allowing people in because of race and everything like Harvard and Yale and stuff like that. And they're saying that this was brought up as far as Asians were bringing it up, that they're not being admitted at the rate that African Americans, and I didn't read all of it, but I just seen it. It's a case in front of the Supreme Court. Now, you have Clarence Thomas that sits on the Supreme Court, and they're saying that Clarence Thomas should recuse himself from this case because of his stance on affirmative action, because of his wife's involvement in organizations that deal with these type things. But why is it, and I'm just asking right now, why is it that when we as people of color get into these positions of authority or at a certain level, when something comes up, they don't think that we can separate ourselves from what the decision is going to be made from our personal beliefs and our personal trials and tribulations that we've gone through. This only happens to specific demographic of people, because it'll come up that, they should recuse themselves, but then they'll come up with all kind of arguments on why they don't have to. The one case that I always go back to is when President Barack Obama was running for president, and they told him he had to separate himself from, I think his name was Pastor Jeremiah Wright, because of things that he said in some of his sermons in the church that Barack Obama used to go to. And Barack Obama, being that he was running for president, decided to separate himself. And that hurt Pastor Jeremiah Wright, because he helped that young man, as a young man, become who he was becoming before he was president. And we've seen it all too many times where we have to separate ourselves from people in order to be able to advance to the next level. But some people can still be affiliated with mob type figures and corruption and all these other different things that go on that we see, and nothing is ever said. Why? There's speculation that they're saying that, being that President Joe Biden said he was going to elect Kamala Harris elect a black woman, African-American woman, to be on the Supreme Court, that he was going to elect Kamala Harris and put somebody else in as VP. Come on, people. These are the type of conspiracy theories that they throw out when it comes to these type of things. But no one talks about all the nominations that President Donald Trump put up for district courts and superior court nominations and everything over his 4 years, where there was very minuscule amount of African-American men or women or people of color as a whole nominated for these positions, who are lifetime positions when they're nominated to these courts. These are the people that are going to be doing legislation, passing laws, so on and so forth, that nobody wants to talk about. But Joe Biden's doing one at the highest court, and John Cheney, his wife, is involved with the Stop the Steal movement. Is he asked to recuse himself from any issues dealing with the issues like this? Yeah, we talked about this last week, and it's still something that they're examining, because they're thinking that in these, when it came to, case in point, when they came to vote for whether they should release the files from the archives that they were trying to block, he was the only one that dissented. He was the only one that said, no, we shouldn't do it. The vote was 8-1. He was the only one. Because I said last week that I think his wife's name may be in some of them papers. That's why they don't want it out there. And a lot of Trump's nominations were unqualified. Exactly. I was getting ready to get to that, but you got me thrown off on the other. But they were very unqualified for the positions that they were put into. Hadn't tried cases, hadn't sat on the bench, hadn't studied under certain people. And there's one person, and I'm going to digress here, but there's one African-American woman right now who is up for on this short list that served under and was a clerk for the person who's retiring, Justice Breyer. And I think it's Ms. Brown, Ketanji Brown. She should be qualified, shouldn't she? Because if you recall, Amy Coney Barrett, the biggest push they were talking about her was that she served and helped as a clerk under Scalia. See how that double standard comes into play? Eric Zupan's the optics people choose to see influence their impression of people who are trying to be heard or carry them in their position to make changes. Yes. When change, see, it goes back to when we talk about change. Some people are open to change. Some people are very resistant to change. Just depends on where you sit, how you think about things, and overall what the change is about. I found this article. It was from the Black Wall Street Times. It was published back in February of 2018. It was updated on January 3rd of 2021 by Rebecca Lace, L-A-I-S. She's a contributor. And she says in this article, she said, why is it that those in the privileged majority, predominantly white people, fear the success of people of color? Is it that when the oppressed are empowered and flourishing, that we, as the oppressors, fear our loss of power? Perhaps it's that people of color can only be successful, only be leaders, only have a voice if they operate within the status quo. Or that people of color are simply pawns meant to be silent and never intended to disrupt our white normativity. Now, I'm not going to read this full article, but I'm going to make sure that I post it on my page after the show, because she went into depth about where the white superiority complex, the white superiority mentality for some folk is created off the fear that Black folk, African American folk, who are the oppressed, will get to a point at some time that even though they're qualified, that they're overlooked for so long and so long that once they are qualified, they're still overlooked. And the fact that the success of people of color causes fear. Causes fear. I heard someone say one time that, you know what, they elected President Barack Obama. We tried it. Yeah, they'll never do that again. What does that mean? We know what it means. Doesn't take a rocket scientist. We know what that means. Big Al, good morning, my brother. Appreciate the support. We know what that means. But I'll post that. It says, why some white people fear the success of people of color. And I'll post that after the show because I was going to read it. I'm not going to get into that because it's long, it's drawn out, and I got this other part that I really want to get into. But when we talk about the Supreme Court, pay attention to how this is going to go down. Pay attention not only to who gets nominated, but when it comes in front of the Senate for the nominating hearings, pay close attention. Pay close attention to the questions that are asked. Pay close attention to the disrespect that may protrude from certain people who are asking the questions. Pay attention to everything and how this woman, African-American qualified woman, is treated during this process. As I always say, when we do things wrong, they dig up even more wrong about what we may have done in our past, even though we may have righted those wrongs. Pay attention to when you're qualified, and sometimes more qualified than the people who are asking you the questions try to minimize your accomplishments to make themselves feel better about themselves. Just saying. Pay attention. Now let's get into this right here. Black NFL owner representation. As I mentioned, there was only one, currently, unless they've done something over the last couple of days, there's only one black head coach in the NFL. There is no black owners in the NFL. We went through this. But I found this article and I seen it the other day and I was shocked, surprised. Okay, here's where we go. The Denver Broncos are on sale. They're for sale. And right now there's a bidding war going on for who's going to be able to buy the Denver Broncos. One of the names that came out on the short list of people who may be able to buy the Denver Broncos is billionaire Robert F. Smith. And the reason this name jumped out at me so like a flash of light in my eyes, for you that don't know, billionaire Robert F. Smith, how do I start? Let's just start with, he's a Denver native, so I can understand him trying to buy the Denver Broncos. The Broncos could cost $4 billion. Mr. Smith is number 141 on the Forbes list of richest Americans. He's 59 years old. He's the wealthiest Black American with an estimated net worth of $6.7 billion. In 2000, he founded the private equity firm Vista Equity Partners, which focuses exclusively on investing in software companies. I appreciate him. I'm glad he's done everything that he's done. I'm not going to minimize his accomplishments. The Columbia University MBA made headlines at Morehouse College's 2019 commencement when he pledged to wipe out the student debt of the entire graduating class. Y'all remember they made a big headline about this because he did the speech there and he said, Nobody's going to have to pay for the college tuition. I'm going to take care of that. Back in 2019. And they say he faces stiff competition to make history as the first owner. 6 groups also want to buy the Broncos, including 2 of the franchise and Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, Peyton Manning and John Elway, who are expected to be in 2 different groups. And Brittany Bowling, the daughter of the late owner, Pat Bowling, billionaire Jeff Bezos of Amazon, and all these people have groups. But if Mr. Smith, if he becomes the main person that's going to be able to buy this team, he's going to have to put up at least $1.2 billion, being that the price tag is $4 billion. Based on NFL rules, that principal owner must put up at least 30% of the purchase price in cash. Robert F. Smith, billionaire, paid off all that tuition for the students in the school back when he did the speech in Morehouse and everything. And now he wants to become the first and only Black NFL owner. Kudos to you, Mr. Smith. But let's talk about Mr. Smith, what they ain't telling you about. Mr. Smith, Mr. Smith conspired with a man named Carlos E. Kepke, a lawyer out of Houston, a tax attorney. And he conspired with Mr. Smith to hide $225 million in untaxed capital gains from the IRS between 1994 and 2014. During the years when Smith was rapidly growing Vista Equity Partners. Prosecutors say that Smith paid Kepke $1 million since 2007 for his services, which included assisting in the preparation of Smith's false 2012 to 2014 tax returns and setting up offshore entities to aid in tax evasion. This is y'all's first Black NFL owner. Could be. Tax evasion, offshore accounts. Don't get me wrong, he ain't doing nothing the rest of them don't do, but I'm talking about representation of who we are as a people. Is this who you want to be the first NFL owner? Prosecutors allege Kepke created for Smith a limited liability company in Nevis called Flash Holdings, as well as an offshore trust based in Belize called Excelsior Trust. Excelsior was set up to own Flash. Thus, when Smith's portion of capital gains from Vista funds was deposited into accounts held in Flash's name in Switzerland and the British Virgin Islands, the money could be routed to the offshore Excelsior Trust away from the eyes of the IRS. Now, we all know, and we've all heard how these tax codes are put in there, and these people get these tax attorneys to find the loopholes to keep more money than they pay. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, they hardly pay any taxes on the money they make. We know this. But all I'm asking, and I'm not trying to do no double standard, so I don't know about it, don't at me with this about how I feel about Mr. Smith. Because why I feel the way I do about Mr. Smith comes up in this next part I'm going to talk about. Now, we heard where this Mr. Kepke, this lawyer, tax attorney, Mr. Kepke, was doing all this for Mr. Smith and all these offshore accounts to help him become the billionaire that he is today. Right? You heard me lay it down. Mr. Smith made a plea agreement. Well, let me put it this way. In October 2020, Mr. Smith entered into a non-prosecution agreement with the Department of Justice in which he admitted to felony tax evasion and the wrongful use of roughly $30 million in charitable trust funds for his personal benefit. Smith agreed to fork over $139 million in taxes and penalties and to cooperate against affiliated scofflaws like Brockman and Kepke, who are the 2 people he was dealing with this. U.S. Attorney David L. Anderson said at the time that despite having committed serious crimes, Smith's cooperation had put him on a path away from indictment. This is who y'all want to be your first Black NFL owner. Now, y'all, don't get me wrong. Some people out there say, come on, RW, come on, bruh. You know, he ain't do nothing that other people ain't did that don't look like us and everything like that. But where do we look at the integrity part of who we are and who we try to be? Because I'm gonna say it this way. Let me get that number. This man is worth $6.7 billion. When you look back at it, now mind you, back in 2020 is when they said that they when he went into his non-prosecution deal. The money he gave to those students at Morehouse was not a generous donation to their college tuition. That was a generous donation to keep us out of jail. Y'all don't hear me though. He didn't give that money freely. He gave that money to stay free. So when we sit back and we talk about, well, we don't have any, black owners in the NFL, or we only got one black owner in the NBA, and all these different things about the money, and they talk about Jay-Z's a billionaire and Dr. Dre and all these people in entertainment and all this kind of stuff and everything. I don't knock the hustle of how you got your money. If you were able to get away with it, you're able to get away with it. What I have a problem with is when you turn over on somebody who helped you get the money to save your. There ain't no loyalty amongst thieves. So the only reason I say this about Mr. Smith, if he becomes, being the first African-American owner and things like this, you have to think about how things work. What image are we looking at when we try to hold ourselves to a high standard of what we're about and what we do? When we overlook things that the people that look like us do when they do things like this, and they turn over, as they say, a sellout in this case. I'm going to use that word today. I usually don't. He sold out the person that helped him gain his millions of dollars in these offshore accounts and everything. See, sometimes just being the first, is something. We got to look at who that first is. We got to look at the background of who that first is. What background does that first have? What does he stand for? Because I guarantee if you go back and you look at all the money he may have donated for tax write-offs and everything before the Morehouse contribution, before he knew he was up to go to jail, before he knew he was going to get sentenced, I guarantee if you look at those donations, many of them donations did not go to black organizations. I'm just going to say it. You may not want to, but I will. See, when we talk about the NFL, black ownership, black coaches, these are the things that we look at and we ask ourselves, wow, how come we ain't got nobody? Or how come we don't have anybody in this position? How come we don't have anybody in that position? Be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. So it may look good if Mr. Smith gets this, as he's the first African-American owner, but what's his background? We see, and this is the thing. We look at people like Donald Trump, who became the president of the United States, and we look at his background, and the thing is, and I bring this up sometimes, we had the rappers out here, and they had him in their rap songs back in the day when he had Atlantic City, which he ruined. Go back and read about it if you want to. He was the downfall of Atlantic City because of all his bankruptcies and everything like that. But we had the rappers out here putting him up on this pedestal. I want money like Trump. And we've come to find out that the money they thought Trump had, he ain't have. And if he did have it, he got it by faulty ways. All money ain't good money. All money ain't good money. But this is where we sit back and we see these things and the visuals look good. The visuals look very good. We're going to get a black owner. We're going to have our first black NFL owner. But would you feel that strongly about that first African-American woman that's going to sit on the Supreme Court if she had a background like Mr. Smith? Would you feel the same way if President Barack Obama had that same type of background as Mr. Smith and you still vote him as president? Would you still feel that way about your significant other if she or he had a background like Mr. Smith? I'm just asking. Everything that's shiny, everything that's shiny, it might not be good. Everything that shines don't always means it's good. That's all I'm gonna say on that. Keep your eyes open on that and see how that goes with nomination. I'm sorry, y'all. Let's see how that goes with the nomination for Mr. Smith to own the Denver Broncos. Oh, let's get in Time for the mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. It's the year 2022, 1,440 minutes a day. That's what we get. We need to enjoy and take each moment, minute by minute. Enjoy the moments in the totality of what they comprise of. In the totality. And we're still taking it one day at a time, as I said, you know. Today's mind, body, and soul. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be okay. You know, this one came to me this week because, you know, I think it might have been last week, late last week. Ian King, son of Regina King, actress, committed suicide. This week I read that back in Hyattsville, Maryland, Mayor Kevin Ward committed suicide. These are just two of many, many suicides that have probably happened over the last 2 weeks. And I say it's okay to not be okay, because I think sometimes we have to realize that everyone struggles sometime. We all have our battles that we're fighting every day. And I say it's okay to not be okay, but I don't say that to the point of getting to that it's okay to leave here. You have loved ones that love you. You have friends that love you. You have people that you can reach out to try to help you through that time that you're struggling with at that time. And when I say it's okay to not be okay, it means, you know, you're going to have those days that are up. You're going to have those days that are real low. It's okay. Because that bad day is not the last day, unless you choose for it to be the last day. You know, Tupac said it, and I don't want to keep throwing these quotes out there, but he said, but after, you know, well, Tupac said it, but it's been said before. After every dark night, there's a brighter day. Sometimes we got to step back from the struggles and everything we may be going with and become vulnerable with ourselves to realize that this bad day today, how many other bad days have I been able to make it through? How many other struggles have I been able to triumph? How did I get this far to be able to sit here and have this bad day past all the other bad days I may have had? You know, I don't know Ian King. I don't know Mayor Kevin Ward. I don't know many of the people that may have taken their own lives within this last week, month, years. And I can't say I understand what they may have been going through. None of us can, and none of us can really truly know. But what we do know is that we've all had our times where it was a low point for us. We've gone through things that have brought us down to the point where we didn't know how to get up. But we got up. We got up. And we got up because we decided to fight another day. We decided to keep on pushing, and we realized that this day today is going to be better tomorrow, because I'm going to choose to wake up tomorrow. I say all this to tell you, and it's been heavy on me this week when I'm thinking about this. When I do the show and I talk about reach out to people, pick up the phone and call that person that's on your mind. You know, if you haven't heard from somebody, be the person to reach out. Stop carrying these grudges and this heartache and being mad about what somebody may have done or what you thought they should have done. I say that because you don't know, we don't know what somebody may be going through. Hell, nobody knows what we're going through unless we choose to tell them. But one thing we have to understand when we're in those pockets, and one thing we got to understand when we may not be hearing from some people, is that it's okay to not be okay. But sometimes, in order for you to know that you're going to be okay, you need that phone call. You need that knock on the door. You need that visit. You need that text. You need that DM. You need that encouragement, that reassurance that it's okay for me not to be okay because tomorrow is a brighter day. You know, I as I said, I don't know these two people that I'm talking about, but it was something about when I seen the things that where they committed suicide that it just hit home for me. Not that I'm not saying this to brag, but I've never been to the point of wanting to take my life. But I can't say that people around me haven't had that on their mind at some time. And it had me step back for a minute and take pause to the fact of the strongest people that we know, the strongest people that we know, or as strong as you may think you are, you get weak sometimes. I get weak sometimes. And we all need that extra oomph from somebody from somewhere to say, you all right, bro? You all right, sis? Whatever you're going through today, just know there's a better tomorrow. Whatever you're going through today, it's okay to not be okay today because today is only today. When we talk about that 1,440 minutes you get today, all 1,440 may be bad. Hell, only one out of that 1,440 may be bad. But when you wake up the next day, you got 1,440 more minutes to be able to leave that 1,440 behind and appreciate the 1,440 you got in front of you. There's suicide hotlines. There's 800 numbers you can call if you're ever in those situations. All I would ask anybody that is listening to me this morning, that knows me, that knows anybody who knows me, my phone line is always open. 770-880-4528. If you ever get into the position that you feel that there is no way out of wherever situation you may be in, 770-880-4528. I'm not saying that, I'm going to be able to talk you out of whatever your mindset may be or anything like that. Because I'm not here to try to talk you out of and try to tell you what you're going through. I'm here to listen. I want to be that ear that your voice may need. We always talk about, am I my brother's keeper? Am I my sister's keeper? Sometimes the person sitting right beside you that you think you know best is struggling. Somebody that you live with, that you think will confide in you no matter what, may be struggling. Sometimes we overlook the struggle because our own struggles seem bigger. Pay attention to those around you. Be involved with those folks that you say you love, whether friend, significant other, family, or a stranger on the street. Because we all struggle, we're all vulnerable, but we all have to realize that you can get help. And there's always somebody out there that will listen, even if the first person that you approached chose not to. It's okay. It's okay to not be okay. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up for today. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Episode 4, pay attention to the Supreme Court process. Pay attention to this NFL owner representation process. As I said, some of y'all be sitting in front of TV today or tomorrow watching the NFL championship games, go to the Super Bowl and all that kind of stuff. Do what you do. But what I will tell you is pay attention to the intricate parts that are going on behind the scenes that we don't normally pay attention to. Pay attention to how these processes work for certain people compared to other folks. And I'll leave you with this last thing that I always say, and a lot of people, some people will see it as me trying to defend myself. Some people will say I'm using it as a misnomer or something of that nature. And all I'll tell you is this. Anyone who you meet in your travels, whether they be pro-Black or pro-white, pro-Latino, does not make them anti-anything else. Now, caveat that to say, if you have this superiority complex with your proness, that's where the problem comes in. Bring that down a notch. We're all created equal. We all bleed the same. We all bleed the same, breathe the same. Everything we do is the same. We got to get to the point where we let our likenesses outshine our differences in everything we do. That's where we're at. Love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely keep your faith in God. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all again next week. Holla at me. Peace.